Hey guys, it's Scranton MMA Talks. This is Frank.
I'm Jess,
Tyler.
and today we're going to talk about the expectations of a Jiu Jitsu purple belt at Scranton MMA. So the first thing on our list that we're going to talk about is about proficiency in your chosen style. And I know we got a little bit into style last week, but I think as a purple belt, you should have sort of an idea of, what works for you and what you can, I think, win with.
Yep.
And you should be pretty good at that. And then there's always stuff you're going to work on, but you should pretty much know, like, I'm going into this round and I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then have,
And-
stuff to fill in after that.
With your style at purple belt, you should start trying to evolve it, constantly be playing around with it, that sort of stuff. I think that's super important. And then when we get to brown belt, purple belt, even though we say be proficient at your chosen style of how you like to roll, you should also start learning different styles. Because at brown belt, when we get to that, we'll be talking about brown belt should have multiple styles of jiu-jitsu. And I think we were all talking before, when we think of the purple belts here at Scranton MMA, we all know exactly what that purple belt, not exactly what they're going to do, but how they're going to roll, their favorite guards, maybe their favorite passes, the tempo, the pressure, the speed, everything like that.
Yeah.
I don't really have too much to add to that because, it's kind of spot on. you know?
Yeah.
How would you define a jiu-jitsu style, Tyler? Because we got into that last week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you're right from what we were talking about last week with the styles is that it's hard to pinpoint what the style is. But I would say you kind of have pressure styles. You have outside, like quick passing styles and whatnot. What do you like to do from your guard? Do you like to attack more? Do you like to sweep more? Do you like to go underneath? Do you like to play outside?
Leg locks.
Yeah. So I think
Elbow
like
locks.
all that stuff kind of plays into whatever, like pick one of those kind of styles and get proficient with that. One
Yeah.
of our topics. But once you could do that, and then that's kind of your game plan. Like the way I would kind of look at it, at least from a competitive standpoint, is going with what you said. That should be like if you get perfect scenario in a match, what would you do? What would be
Yeah.
the guard you play? How do you get yourself on top or sweep or submit from the bottom, whatever the case is. But what would you do in the most perfect scenario for you? And then that kind of is your style, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. Our next topic is understanding the basics enough to teach them. That doesn't necessarily mean that every purple belt is destined to be an instructor, but I think it means that, let's say you come across, a white belt or a blue belt and they're struggling with one of the basics, like an armbar from guard or something, you can, like, sit there and just walk them through the steps. And then eventually, if, at purple belt, if you wanted to, like, for us, that's where we're comfortable having people start teaching adult beginner classes.
Yeah, by themselves.
Yeah, like as the lead instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think like
yeah.
you kind of at blue belt you would kind of be able to say like this is how you would do the armbar.
Yeah.
But purple belt it's different when you have to teach it. Like I know when I first started teaching classes like 6 a.m. I actually had to break down like what is each individual step. Like what is the point of control? What's the focus? And then at purple belt, your basics. That's what you should have down. Like when I go for the armbar, I need my foot on the hip, knee pinched to control the arm so they can't pull out, and then start working to cut the angle. What would make it easier to cut the angle? All that stuff, and that would kind of go in with what purple belt should be able to teach and talk about.
Yeah.
And even too with the basic moves along those terms is not only when you teach, you're teaching step by step, but you're also teaching a group of people that might have different body types, might have different flexibility levels, might
Different
have
ways of learning.
Yeah, so being able to understand a move so well where you might not be able to say, oh, you're doing something wrong, oh, your legs are so long, you're gonna have to bend them in a little bit more. You know,
Yeah.
like being able to understand the movements to that level, especially the basic movements. It takes time and it's very difficult, but that's something that I think purple belt should be focusing on. And not only will that help the students, but like you were saying, even not everybody's destined to be an instructor or to teach, but that's going to help yourself learn.
Yeah.
You could take stuff that I say, Jess says, Tyler says, famous jujitsu people say, and go, all right, I like 90% of this, but maybe something's not going to work for me. Maybe I can't bend like that, or maybe that person's very, very strong and I wouldn't be able to do that in a live scenario. But being able to understand movements that well, you could apply it to your own game.
Yeah, definitely. Next one is being able to roll with a continuous flow of technique. So when purple belts are rolling, we're just looking for like a flow, not a lot of choppiness there.
Triangle omoplata armbar.
Yeah.
You know, like triple threat from guard. You should be able to kind of hit that almost seamlessly. You know, chain that stuff all together.
Mm-hmm.
You should have some combinations with guard passes down, where again, kind of fitting into your style. Like if I like pressure passes, over under. Single under stack pass, double under stack pass, you should be able to kind of use your style and flow between those techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, I know we're talking about like very specific styles, but your style could also be a combination of pressure and distance passing, or underneath and distance guards. Like
Yeah. We're not
it's
telling
very
you.
unique for you. I know we keep using those examples.
They're like the easiest ones
Yeah.
to bring up.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to define it, but really it is what you do. Like I know we have a couple of people that are trying pressure passes that aren't purple belts that used to do outside passing. That's great. Like incorporate that into your game. Like that should be your style. It's not necessarily pigeonholed to all I'm gonna do is like super pigeonholed into arm bars only. No. That's not what we're saying here. But back to the original subject, roll with the continuous flow of technique. I would like to see, like, when you pass, do you stop there and like wait a second, or are you transitioning to a more dominant position or a second move? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that's some of the details. This week we went over that cut passing series. And people are like, well, if you cut pass, you're already in front of them. Why go back around? That, as a purple belt, you should understand already. Like, oh, well, if I'm already here, but all this distance is between us, then I really have to continue to pass by going almost backwards, kind of, you know, by going to the other side. We shouldn't see you rolling very choppy. You could get hard rounds, be out of breath, but you should also be able to know how to use correct technique and be able to roll without having to be physically exhausted as well. If that's your style, is you like a lot of physical exertion, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, when you go get tested for your purple belt, when you get tested for your brown belt, your black belt, you're in there for a while, you know? And being able to show that you have technique well enough that you're not exerting yourself to the point of you have to sit out is, I think, something very important as a purple belt you should work on.
Yeah, and that just plays right into the next point, is being able to like aggressively attack.
Yeah.
What's that?
I kind of blended those
Yeah,
two.
and that's fine. I just want to make sure we hit each point in case anybody's looking for a specific one. But being able to attack yet remaining calm and controlled, and it really does go right into that rolling with the flow sort of thing.
Mhm.
They really do work hand in hand. And it's not, you know, like when you're a purple belt, you're like a higher rank, and you see all these, you know, white and blue belts in front of you, and it's not about, you know, like picking on them and like I'm gonna use this to try to beat them or whatever. It's just about like responding to them and like keeping that like calm, controlled flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not about driving through or anything like that. Like, yeah, it's cool being a purple belt, but it's also really great like remaining super calm and like hitting those moves while being calm and knowing that like your strength or your speed wasn't the factor that like got you through that moment. It was like the technique.
Yeah.
I always think that's very satisfying.
Oh yeah. I mean, being able to roll like a lot of hard rounds, but also not being like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Is a cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that gets easier, especially at purple belt, because somewhere in that, when you get your purple belt, you should be able to like see moves ahead of time already,
Yeah.
right? So you've gone through your basics, you know your basic setups. Blue belt, you learned and expanded between different guards and whatnot, and passes and everything. And at purple belt, I think some of that stuff should start to click, and you should see some of that stuff. I just had a roll with someone the other day where it was a little bit of a scramble position, but I was just one step a little bit quicker of getting like my knee to the outside, where I was able to kind of keep my base, and then I was able to catch myself and manage to pass off of that, because I just knew that if I didn't take that step, the next thing was going to be they were going to get closed guard or half guard on me or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just tried to stay a step ahead, and then that also helped me preserve a little energy, because then I didn't have to fight out of the half guard or anything.
Yeah.
You know?
True. That is true. And then the last thing is acting as an example for the lower ranks at the gym. Whether you like it or not, they're looking up to you at that point. You're considered a higher rank now. I think purple is when you're considered a high rank.
And when we say that, when we say act as an example, I don't want it to seem corny or like silly. We have a very lax atmosphere here, but just not being like almost disrespectful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can have fun. You can play around with people. We're all here to enjoy jiu-jitsu, and more importantly, enjoy each other's company. But that being said, like, I can't think of any of our purple belts, but like, I could say something like, as like, you shouldn't just walk across the mats with your shoes on. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Show up to class on time.
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that.
yeah,
And then even sometimes, giving little reminders, like maybe someone walks to the bathroom with no shoes. You kind of have that authority to be like, hey, just throw some shoes on. Like
yeah,
little things like that. Like you understand like the culture of the gym at that point.
yeah.
And then it's easier to like instill, and like you get to be those sort of like culture makers too.
Yeah.
As high ranks. Like, I don't know, if there's something you don't like, then you kind of have that opportunity to work with people and say like, hey, maybe I don't like when you grab my fingers, and so like you talk to people and you say like, hey, let's not do that anymore.
Yeah.
So
And not only does it talk about setting an example for the culture we have here at the school, but also you set an example of how to learn, how to do jiu-jitsu, how to practice jiu-jitsu, how to drill, how to roll, everything like that. I think that's something super important. As like Jess said, whether you like it or not, as a purple belt, people do look up to you. It is technically the first advanced rank that we're talking about. Blue belt is a higher rank than white belt, yes, but it's not considered an advanced rank. I think your quote last week was the best, is blue belt is...
Blue belt is just a better white belt.
Yeah, that's it, But at purple belt, you've already understood a lot of like how to learn and everything like that. I think that's important to teach the next generation of blue belts and white belts coming up, because you had someone to help you show, like, oh, like, let me show you how I, like, even if it's something as simple as like, hey, I saw this, can I break this down with you after class or before class? They're learning, like, what the thought process is for jiu-jitsu, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's super important for everybody's growth. When your training partners get better, you get better.
Yeah. I'll always say it, like every new crop of white belts just gets better faster and faster. Like
Yeah.
for I don't know about these guys, but for me to get better, it took like a really long time. Like I was well into my blue belt before I would consider myself like any good, you know. Whereas like now we have white belts here for like 3 months and they're doing great.
Yeah.
Doing stuff that I would never understand as like even a new blue belt.
I agree with that because I was the same boat.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, true.
Things were not easy. It didn't come smooth to me or anything.
Yeah.
Had to work at it to get better and everything. And now at least like when I'm teaching, sometimes I almost put too much information out there at once
Yeah.
because like
I
just
do too
through my
sometimes.
experiences, you know, like I just know like, all right, if I do this, it will make it more difficult. If I do this, it will make it a little bit easier. So I try
Yeah.
to lay that all out there. And hopefully like, you know, first time around, maybe like it's the first time you're seeing an Americana, right? So you're learning the steps to it, you're learning how to do it and whatnot. But then the second time around, we come back to the Americana. Now you start to really get what I'm talking about when we talk about points of control and where, like dragging down the arm to isolate the shoulder, how all that stuff is fairly important.
Yeah.
Because without that, and just through trial and error, you'll notice when you go for the Americana, if you don't do some of those things, you're not going to have the same success rate as you would doing
Yeah.
it the other ways.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and I also think like purple belts definitely have that like role model to are a role model to like white belts and even blue belts and stuff, right? And so when you're at like an open mat, try to get rounds with them because if you are a white belt, whether you're aggressive or you're not aggressive, right? It plays both ways, right? Those people are going to be able to help you to figure out what you should be looking for, how you should be exerting yourself in different situations. Like, do I put a little bit more energy into this escape right now, or do I wait a little bit longer, or, you know, whatever the case is. But it'll help. I know you talked to people about this before of like getting the chance to roll with higher belts
Yeah.
and how that just in general will make you better because you'll start to see things a little bit more, understand the flow of rolling a little bit more, where the give and take actually is in the round and stuff. So
Yeah. One quick thing too is some schools don't allow lower ranks to ask higher ranks to roll.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that rule.
No,
So please
it's
ask.
a silly rule.
It's silly.
I love when people ask me to roll.
Yeah.
I would rather it, honestly.
Yeah, me too, me too.
Like, I don't want to, like, pick and choose. Like,
Yep.
just come over to me and just roll.
Worst comes to worst, if I'm not rolling that day, I'll just be like, hey, I'm not rolling today.
Yeah.
Or, oh, maybe I don't feel like that round, I'm taking a round off. That's literally the worst answer you'll get if you ask somebody, hey, you want to roll? No thanks, not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
And then you just find somebody else.
A lot
That's
of the
fine.
big guys always try rolling with me, and every now and then I'm a little beat up, so I'm just like,
No.
sorry, I gotta
Yeah.
stick with the small guys today, or something
Yeah.
like that, you know?
but
Yeah.
don't ever take that as like a discouragement to ask higher ranks to roll. I think maybe after this series, I wouldn't mind like doing maybe like kind of etiquette stuff and what we like.
Maybe, like, there's probably, like, common rules out there.
Yeah.
That we could sort of, like, squash or say we do follow that or we don't.
Yeah.
Like, some people have, like, uniform rules.
Yeah, we don't.
follow that.
Just if it's a gi class, wear a gi, please. If it's a no gi class, wear no gi. That's for a different.
Yeah,
lesson.
yeah.
Video.
Okay, but we'll start wrapping this up because I feel like we're
Okay,
getting all
make
over
sure
the
you
place.
guys smash that like button.
Yeah.
Jess hates that phrase.
I don't like it that much.
And if you guys
Everybody
real,
says it.
real quick, we're gonna take a sponsor ad for Word VPN.
Oh my gosh. Is that a real?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna end this here. We're getting out of control. All right, bye.
Bye.